Hello, podcast community. It's Michelle again, Paladin Global Markets Online Business Podcast. I'm so glad you're here. You are not going to want to miss this podcast. I have a special guest, and I'm just thrilled to bring him to you today. His name is Alex Sanfilippo. So, Alex is the host of the Top 20 Entrepreneurship Podcast, Creating a Brand. He's also the founder of Podmatch.com. It's a free service that automatically matches guests and hosts together for interviews. I want to take a moment just to introduce you a little bit more to Alex before we jump into the interview. So Alex said that when he started his business at age 10, he began selling used golf balls in his neighborhood and realized that he really enjoyed generating sales and keeping track of profits. Yes, he knows that was odd for a 10-year-old. Fast forward a number of years, he began investing in real estate and also started and sold a tech company in that space, creating virtual tours of homes. From there, he went into aerospace and worked his way up from part-time employee all the way to a senior executive in a largely publicly traded organization. Throughout this time, he began blogging and built a multi-author blog with more than 130 writers on it. He got into productivity and business startup coaching, which led him into the launch of his Creating a Brand podcast. So that's where he serves his audience today in a more direct way. He's also the founder of the Lean SaaS startup company, Podmatch.com. And I'm sure I said that wrong. SaaS, SaaS. There we go. His goal is to help others succeed in life and in business, and he devotes all of his time to the service of others. He is an absolute phenomenal guest. So let's get into the interview. You ready? Here we go. Welcome to Paladin Global Markets Online Business Podcast. I am so excited today to have with us our guest, Alex Sanfilippo. Did I say that right?
You did, and that's extremely rare, so thank you.
You're welcome. I've met Alex through some dear friends of ours and my husband, but I've heard raving reviews about him and what he provides for the podcasting community, and you guys are in for a big treat. So again, thank you so much for being on the show, Alex.
Yeah, it's an honor to be here. I'm really excited to be here with you today and add some value to some people.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So you have created Podmatch, which is a platform where it connects podcasters, hosts, and guests with each other. Can you kind of explain a little bit about that service that you provide?
Yeah, sure. The simplest way to say it, and I'll give a little bit of explanation behind this, but
Please.
It's like online dating, but for podcast guests and hosts. It's like the simplest way to do it. We have somebody who's a pretty big podcaster, and he got on it and he sent us a review. He's like, hey, feel free to do this review. And all it said is better than Tinder. Is what he said, which I thought was pretty funny. But anyway, the whole concept is just, hey, can we help a guest and a host find each other faster and it be a more ideal match than maybe just trying to go through LinkedIn or sending random emails. These are actually people who want to get on podcasts instead of just a random person who maybe doesn't want to, and vice versa. It's a host that says, I do need guests, I'm looking for them. So It's been very helpful from that side of things. And that's the whole idea behind it. Let's just make that connection process easier, let the message right on the platform. Again, just to be helpful in the podcasting space, because podcasting is a labor of love, Michelle. You being on that side of the mic is way harder than what I'm doing today. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. So anything we can do to make it easier was the whole goal behind Podmatch regarding the interview side of things. Obviously, we don't help with everything, but we help people get that interview a little quicker.
And you do a fantastic job. And I think it has, for my own personal business and for getting my word out and helping my ideal audience, it has just been a great connector. So it's like you said, it's a great matchmaker between in the podcast community. So could you lend into that as far as what are some great tips that you could offer our online audience on podcasting and how they could apply that to their business?
Yeah. So first off, thank you again. I appreciate you using the service and all that.
Absolutely.
That definitely means a lot. So how people can kind of relate this type of, like you're talking about, like actually using a podcast to grow a business. Is that what?
Absolutely.
Is that yeah.
Yes, sir.
Well, I want to make sure before I just go on a rant and you have me talking about the wrong thing, right? Yeah. So podcasting is really different than social media. And I think a lot of people don't realize this. We live in a very numbers driven world right now. And again, that goes back to just the effects of social media. So we look at total likes, total followers, total this, how fast this happens, right? And that's just the way we've been conditioned. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing in most cases, but it is when you try to compare everything apples to apples, right?
Right.
And I think that becomes a problem. So with podcasting, where I find the biggest benefit is the power that you have with other people, with the audience. So here's an example. If I told you I got 50 likes on a picture on Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn, you'd be like, okay, that's cool. A lot of people get that, right?
Sure.
But 50 people listening to my podcast is much more powerful. And here's why. If somebody likes something on my Instagram, let's just say they probably scrolled right past it. They saw my name, maybe they like me. So they just double tapped it and kept on going, right? I got about half a second of their time. They probably didn't even read anything that was on it. But if somebody listens to my podcast, and let's just say it's a 30-minute episode, they are listening to me for 30 minutes, like actually listening to me. And when a lot of people are like, oh, I don't really want to be a guest on podcasts to try to grow my business, I'd rather just do some ads and stuff like that. You're paying for somebody to scroll past you. But when you're a guest on somebody's show, even if they only have like 20 listeners, that is 20 people that you need to compare to as being people sitting in seats. So I always use that explanation. It's like going into a room and there's 20 people, let's just imagine, that listen to your podcast. They are sitting there for 30 minutes, an hour, wanting to hear what you want to say. And when you think about it that way, you're creating the element of people knowing, liking, and trusting you, because they're getting more than just a second of your time. You're getting more of their time as well, right? You're building that relationship. And I always like to try to give that example, because I find that people who listen to podcasts, they seem to spend more money as well, which there's actually some data on. They're usually a little bit, they're actually usually a little bit more wealthy than the average individual. And most of them go to podcasts to learn something new. Like that's why they show up. They want to further develop themselves. So all these different things really, to me, share the power of podcasting. I know I just, again, went on a rant there. That's why I want to make sure I have the right thing.
Oh, no, that was to keep on going. That's fantastic. Well, and that's something that I enjoy about being a host, is I get to pick the brains of industry experts that are out there. And this is exactly, now that you say that, it makes perfect sense. I love podcasting, and I'm just being able to scratch the surface of the power behind it. But I think it's a great way to get our voice out across the airways and help build other people's businesses and ours in the hindsight as well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. As a matter of fact, when we started Podmatch, this is a bootstrapped business. So we started it. What that simply means is we're doing it with our own cash. Me and my business partner, we're 50-50 partners. We put $5,000 into a bank account, and we said, hey, we're going to see what we can do with this $5,000. We'll reevaluate if it runs out, right? If it runs out was the big thing. And instead of using that money toward marketing, like initially I kind of started developing something to grow it using social media, but I was looking at the cost to scale down. Like, we're going to need investors and stuff. I was like, you know what? Let me just get on 100 podcasts this year. I'll jump on 100 as a guest. This was 2020. Let me see what I can do this year as just being a guest on shows. And we never spent a dime on marketing. And right now, today, we have somebody join every 8 minutes. A new person joins the platform. And it's for people listening to these shows that I've been on. And it's not all me. I'm not like a great salesperson, as your audience can already tell today. Like, I just talk and share.
That's great. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks. But, I'm just talking and sharing my story, being transparent. If that resonates with somebody, they're going to take action because they know more about me than just 1 second. They're going to listen to me for a period of time. And that really is powerful. Like, growing a business organically, just, again, I am using my time because I'm showing up on shows, but it's always going to be out there. And these podcasts are still producing episodes. They still reference it. And I think it's just a powerful thing.
That is amazing. Absolutely. And the other thing you got to think about it, when you're out there and you're cold calling, so to say, when you're marketing, because I've done that with ads and different types of funnel things, it not only does it cost money, but these people don't know you. They don't know who you are. But when you're on a podcast and you're also on there as either a guest or a host, and you're bringing in an audience behind them that already knows, likes, and trusts them. And they say, okay, well, if they find that valuable enough to talk to this person or be on their show or vice versa, then we should listen. And so it's just the power of organic marketing and networking, I should say. It's very powerful.
Yeah. And I'm not going to downplay the value of social media. I'm not saying like get away from it, don't do ads, right? Like those have their place as well. And especially if you have the capital for it or you get a good ROI. Here's the thing, if you have a Facebook ad going and it costs you $2 a day and you're making $4 a day, spend more money with that, right? As long as that keeps on going, scale that up as far as you possibly can. That's a great way to drive revenue with very little needed on your part other than continued capital, right? But if it's bringing more than you're spending, great. This is just an alternative to that. Maybe something you add to it. Because again, I just think it really is that powerful. And to another point you just made, getting to network with people like you and I will likely have a relationship after this. And that's usually how it goes. Like you'll have more connections. I'll recommend people to be on your show. You'll make some recommendations my way, I hope, right? Like that's usually the way it seems to go. And it just gives you a platform that you don't have otherwise. Like a conversation like this, where we're going to talk for however long we're going to talk. It's a lot harder to make this happen. Not just, I'm not talking about my time or your time necessarily, but this is a trade-off that's worthwhile for people. So you can really get to know somebody. And for me, it turns into free coaching on my show. I just learn a lot from everybody. So
I love it. Same here. As I had a guest on recently earlier this morning, and she said some powerful points. I'm like, I'm going to go back and re-listen and take notes myself, because it
right.
really truly is like you're talking to industry leaders, and I do see you as that as well. So podcasting, I found out recently. So I have mine currently hosted on Anchor. I recently attended the Podfest. And just took a ton of notes on that as well. And they're talking about different platforms to possibly host it on. But Anchor offered something about, they have a WordPress site to go with it, to launch your show notes and such. I've noticed I honestly, true transparency, I didn't mean to make it live, but apparently I posted something live. I got several followers within the first 24 hours. Have you
Good
used
job.
anything of that? I was like, oh, what is this? Oh no, I didn't mean for it to be live. Okay, it's on. But have you used anything in that regards for the keyword, kind of help to drive links to your podcast?
Yeah, I've definitely done quite a bit of that. I have a bit of a background in blogging. Years ago, that's kind of more where I got my start. So having a WordPress site to go along with my podcast, it just seemed natural to me. So for some people, it's not. And there's a website, I believe it's Podpage or Podpages, one of the other .com, I think. And it's podcast specific. They make it really simple. So if you're like, I don't want to do any of that, that's really good. So Podpage or Podpages, whichever one it is a really great solution that's going to help you kind of get a blog post version, so that for SEO, search engine optimization purposes, you can kind of get a little bit of boost. And when I first started, I actually really went all in and wrote great articles to go with every episode. Long term, I just didn't have time for it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it definitely gave me more organic traffic going to the website. But now I realize, after polling my audience, because that's really important to me, is to know who listens to my podcast, what they're interested in. Again, they don't have a lot of time. Like we talked about that offline. Like they're people that are already busy. They've got their full-time job and they're trying to manage a side hustle or startup on the side as well. Right. And so this is just something that I'm honored that they would even listen. So I'll make sure to be really strategic. So now I still do like a blog post. I'm doing air quotes here, but all that it really is here is my one paragraph about the episode, like really short. It's basically what I read for the intro. Under that is, here are the 10 links we talked about, or the 8 links we talked about. And that's all I'm putting in there. And so it's really short. It's not going to ever rank for SEO. But again, for my audience, which is the most important thing to me, that's what they're most interested in. They seem to respond to the best. So I kind of cut out the rest. But if you do have the time and the resources to do that, or you can pay a company to do it, it's great for an SEO boost for you to be able to focus on the search engine side of things.
That's amazing. I'll never forget, a consultant said, marketing is a layered approach. You add layer upon layer upon layer, and before you know it, it will continue to snowball, and you'll see the efforts of it for sure.
Yeah, I've definitely found that to be true. And really, it's a matter of finding out what works, because for everybody, it's gonna be a little bit different. It depends on who your audience is, right? Like some people, their core audience is really interested in one thing, but another isn't. And I think with podcasting or with anything else, it's really important to define an avatar. And I know we don't need to jump into all that, but it's really important to have that one most ideal person that you say, this is who I serve, and think about everything you do from their perspective instead of yours. I'm like, oh, if I did this, it'd be cool. Oh, if I did that, it'd be cool. Go back to that person. So for me, my avatar for my podcast name's Adam. Everything I do, I weigh against Adam first. Would Adam actually be interested in this? If the answer is no, I don't do it. And it's that simple, even though it might be a best practice, air quote there, because there's a lot of best practices out there, right? I just can't spread myself thin. I've got to make sure I'm really focused on what I do. And that's honestly the key to success in podcasting, is consistently doing what you know you're supposed to do and avoiding the rest of the noise along the way.
That's amazing. And that's something that I'm continuing to learn. And I think you refine through your business as the business has continued to grow and you reach new levels of success, is how to quiet the outer noise and stay focused and true to your brand. Is there some tips that you can provide our audience on ways that you've learned how to do that?
Yeah, Michelle, is a great question. It's easily one of my favorite topics I just don't get to talk about. So thank you for that. Yeah. First off, on this point, you did an episode where you talked about growing and starting like your online business. You did it back on February 15th, if I'm remembering correctly, and forgive me if I'm wrong, but your audience should go back and listen to that if they haven't caught that one, because you talked about keeping it healthy, right?
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of us, myself included, you'll just overwork yourself. And that's when I had the realization that I had to hone in on what was important, because I didn't listen to that episode that Michelle posted. Instead, I just was like, I'm going to do all these things. And there's 24 hours in a day. I can sleep 4 or 5 and the rest can be focused on this. I'm married, thankfully still married. I don't know how sometimes, but this is something I've really had to learn. So this is something that, again, I'd go back to that February 15th episode and listen to that, because it's really good on this point. But for me, how I've had to learn this is really won through a burnout, unfortunately, years back, just hitting that point where I was like, okay, I'm done. Like, I don't want to do my job anymore. I don't want to do my side hustles. Like, everything was just hit that spot.
Yeah.
And that was when I realized what I did really helped a lot is I got away and I self-reflected. And I think self-reflection is such an important thing. What that simply means is getting rid of your phone, getting rid of the computer, getting rid of the music, grab a notepad and a pen, and just that, and go somewhere that inspires you. So for some people, that might be like a coffee shop. They like being around people. I usually do, but I'm going to reflect. I really like sitting at the beach. I live just a few minutes from the water in Jacksonville, Florida, and I like to sit out there by the beach. And yeah, maybe I look crazy because I don't have a phone on me. I'm not listening to music. I've got a pen and paper, which is like, no one knows what that is anymore. But I just sit there and I think about, okay, where am I going? Where have I come from? What's next? Like, I ask myself these questions, and I leave myself a lot of time to do this. Like, when I'm going to go, I tell my wife, hey, my phone's going to be in the car, and I'm probably going to be there for 4 hours and just going to be there thinking. And I usually write a handful of pages, and it helps a lot. Like, it really helps a lot for me to hone in on what matters. And that's the first step I'd always give to anybody, Michelle. I think it's the most important thing to do. Is you can't really know unless you take the time to figure it out, right? When we're in it, we're so in it that we just feel like, oh, give me more, give me more. I can keep on going and keep on going. You've got to stop, and you've got to sit down, decompress, think about it. And that's definitely the first step, I'd say.
I love that. Absolutely. That, as you've heard, that's a heartbeat of mine. I've learned myself through, I tried to work myself into the hospital twice in the last couple of months. And I've learned, I'm like, hold on a second. Now, the success that I'm enjoying and continuing to grow my business is not going to be worth it to me if I don't have the health to go behind it. My Lord, my family, and my health are important. And so I need to make sure I keep priority in those situations. And I think as entrepreneurs, we have a tendency, because we're used to solving problems. We're used to, and we love like building and starting new things and growing. But I think that can also be our weakness too, where we see, like, my husband's always like, Michelle, you see profit and everything. Like, I'm like, oh, I could do this and this and this. It's like,
you're my people.
Yes, I just love it. I can't, like, Paul and I, when we're together, a friend of ours is to share with our audience, we're like bouncing off, like playing tennis the whole time. Like, we do this and this and this. But sometimes it can also be to your detriment if you don't take those times to stop, breathe, refocus, focus on your avatar, make sure you're on the right path where you want to go. That's so key for us to learn.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And the next step is kind of like just natural. I'll kind of jump into, Michelle, and we can kind of shift gears if you'd like. But it's really important to mention is after you do this, you can't just go back to life as usual. Like, you have to make adjustments. And the only way to know which adjustments to make is to, once again, keep that same piece of paper and pen with you and take inventory of your life. So I recommend doing this for like a week. Follow yourself around and just write down everything that you do, like everything. Well, maybe not everything. I had one guy who told me that he realized he was spending too much time in the bathroom, which is kind of funny. I was like, hey man, like, I didn't mean like that. I meant like business wise, like fun, but he took it very literal and wrote down literally everything he was doing.
Just follow instructions.
Yeah, way too close. But so maybe not that far, but enough that you say, okay, I'm spending 3 hours a day watching TV and I'm really stressed about my job. Maybe I could cut that back and find something else that's more life-giving. Maybe I can go outside, go for a walk, or go spend time with my spouse or my significant other. Like, find a way to do something like that. You can say, okay, this is a better use of that time. And I'm not trying to make us all into machines and be like, okay, don't do anything that's fun or leisure, right? But just be careful with what you're doing, because I find that a lot of people are stressed, they feel busy, but when they do this practice, they realize they're actually not. They're just mismanaging their time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the stress that we feel sometimes, if we really stop and hone in on it, is that we feel all this stuff going on, this buzz, this to-dos. I want to do all this stuff. But if we don't quiet it down and put it in actionable steps and prioritize, so what I've started to do, on a side note, what I started to do in the morning is I've framed my day. I start and say, okay, especially when I'm feeling that, like, I've got so much going on in my head, I'm like, all right, so what is the one top thing that I want to accomplish before the end of today? And then I'll go to bed saying, wow, that was a good day if I didn't do anything else. Then what's the second one? This is the third one. I usually only let myself do 3 on those. And that has really helped to just prioritize and keep myself on gear, on point, for sure.
That's so powerful. I love that you do that. Do you find it's like relief stress for you?
Yes, it does. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and to share a little bit, I worked myself into the hospital. I had a stroke recently, and it left me with where for a period of time, I had to stop, and I just had this feeling of where I could, if I tried to multitask, I couldn't. I literally kind of hurt. And so I had to learn to like, all right. And as for myself, I'm a Christian. And so I believe that the Lord let me get to that point where I was like, all right, Michelle, you got to slow down, you got to focus. And so learning to control all those to-dos and all the things I want to do has really, really helped. And I'm very grateful to say I feel much better than I used to.
Wow. I love that you shared that story transparently. Thank you that's really cool that you shared that.
Absolutely.
It makes me think of a roommate that I had years back. And this is something that really helped me a lot. He quoted a scripture at me, and I don't think he meant to like, in the faith, we call like a Jesus juke. Like he didn't mean it like that. Like I was just stressed about everything I had going on, and I was really accelerating my success, but I was like, it could be even faster, do this. And he quoted one scripture to me, and he said, Alex, in the Bible, it talks about how an inheritance gained in haste won't be blessed in the end.
Yes.
And for some reason, that moment just hit me. I'm like, I'm trying to do like a lifetime worth of achievements in 1 year. And I think that word achievement, I think, is what so many of us we get addicted to it. It's like adrenaline, it's like, it's for many entrepreneurs, like that's the factor of like, that feels fun. Like we feel rewarded, but it's never enough. And that's the thing that we have to learn to somehow decide, like, hey, for my own health, I have to take a break. Like, yes, I'm achieving things every day, but I've got to slow down. Because here's what I've realized from people that are mentors in my life, they're far older than me. They don't remember their kids growing up. And I think that that's a really sad place to be when they say, I had kids and they're all grown and gone. And I was just going from achievement to achievement to achievement. I didn't stop to enjoy life. And the thing is, life is a lot shorter than we all give it credit for. And I'm only in my 30s, but yes, I know that there's an end at some point, and we never know exactly when that's going to be. But even if I live till the end of my days, right? Like it's still temporary. And we have to realize that we have to stop to enjoy life. And it's more than just entrepreneurship. It's more than just work. It's more than just podcasting, right? There's got to be something that you're doing that you say like, I'm refreshed. I feel healthy. Like I feel energized. And sorry, Michelle, I'm going on a rant here. This is really important stuff.
No more sorries. This is such good stuff. I absolutely love it. It reminds me, yesterday I did a video podcast with a gentleman, and we were talking about that. Money, think about this. What are we striving so hard to get? Yes, there is that good feeling you get when you achieve something. And I love turning things into profit, like having ideas, and that's just fun to me. But ultimately, once you have the finances and you've got the things that you want, you have the beautiful home, the nice cars, you've got beautiful, things, you can go on vacations, well, pre-2020, and you can do those different things. Money is still just a tool. It's just something that sits in your bank account. But if you don't have the health and you don't have the enjoyment of your life and you don't have the balance of it, it's not a success. It's just a big bank account.
Yeah. And I think that too many people fall into that trap of when they reach this milestone, that'll be enough. And I know that in podcasting, it's true. Like many of us, we look at the download numbers way too religiously. Again, for me, the way that my philosophy with podcasting is, if I'm impacting one person, again, Adam being that avatar, if I know I'm impacting that one person, it's worth it. And I'm so thankful every time I post an episode, at least one person reaches out. But as soon as that one does, that it helped, I'm happy. But so many of us were like, I need to get to 1,000 downloads. I need to get to 2,000 downloads, to 5 to 10.
Right.
And that goes on forever. Like, how are you going to catch up to the people that already have 100 million downloads, right? Like, and that's what we compare ourselves to. But again, it goes back to like, what value actually adding to the world, to the one person who needs you most. And I wrote an article, Michelle, a couple of weeks ago that was received well by some people, not well by others. But I titled it, Please Stop Trying to Change the World, which some people got offended by. But my whole point was, all of us, when we start something, we have this idea of like, oh my gosh, this is going to revolutionize this. It's going to change the world. It's going to do this. And although that's really nice, I guess a good gesture, you put way too much pressure on yourself. If you can instead focus on the one person who needs what you're doing the most and serve that person wholeheartedly, you're going to go further, I usually find, but also you're going to feel more fulfilled, instead of saying it's only reaching 10 people or 20 people or 100 or 100,000, right? It's not the whole world yet. We need to all stop thinking about changing the world and instead decide what's the impact that we can have. And I found that when we carry this mindset, we carry ourselves a lot healthier, like in podcasting, in entrepreneurship, in life. Like when we can decide, hey, I'm here to serve people, whoever that is that crosses my path today. And I've just found that's a better way to do business.
I love that. Will you please share that with me when we're done, so I can put in our show notes that article that you wrote?
Yeah, definitely.
That's just fantastic. You're absolutely right. And I think too, as humans, we do get into the mindset of the numbers and the achievement and the goal and the rankings. But if we don't it's a more healthier view if we're focusing on the person that we're wanting to help, and that ideal person, that how can we best serve them? Because if you serve someone else and you take care of them, your business is going to be taken care of. You're going to have more business than you know what to do with, because people are drawn to that. They're magnetized to that when you care and you really, truly, genuinely want to do an excellent job to help best serve them. And if your business is one, your services are one that can help them, great. If not, you'll point them in the right direction. And people remember that. And it's a healthy way, a healthy outlook for sure.
Yeah, I always say that seek to be a person of value, not a person of profit. And I have that written down in my
Love it.
journal every single day, to be that person of value. And as a matter of fact, when the internet first started, like
Yeah.
earlier generations, I was around when there was still dial-up, like,
Yeah, me
and
too.
when back then it was a little easier for people to kind of trick you into buying something. Like for some
Yeah.
reason that's how it was. But we haven't given credit to these younger generations. And I'm talking people that are still in their early teens. They're a lot savvier than we
Oh,
think,
yeah.
and they can see right through your
Yeah.
like what you're doing.
Yeah.
And in a scary way, I've actually read some reports on this. Like they can know why you built something without even having to like look into it too far. They're just kind of wired in this internet age of like
Yeah.
to see through all that. So they can kind of see through the smoke and mirrors and know, is this person really trying to help me, or are they just trying to make some money? They're
Yeah.
trying to make some money. I'm done. And we're finding now that if you are not seeking to help somebody, you're actually, it's now being proven that your business will not grow. You have to have this proper mindset. Again, not so you can get the profit, but so you can really actually be a value of people. So to
Yeah.
other people. And I think that that's nice to see that it's actually reflecting in actual businesses now.
Absolutely. And I one thing, and I've thought about this several times before our interview, is Podmatch has been an incredible service to my business. It has, I have to say, and I hope no one gets upset, I think you're charging too little. The amount of value that I'm receiving from this, I'm like, this is amazing, because most things in this world and most things in business, you're up paying for, you're paying up for it. But there's not many times where you receive something where you're like, wow, I should really give you some more money for this. So great job, Podmatch, by the way, just fantastic job.
Well, that just makes my day. Thank you so much for that. And eventually we do have a plan to continuously increase the price as it grows. But really, right now, because we're still in beta, we look at the people who have joined as people who are helping us improve and get the product even better. And again, we launched it to help people, so we're just sticking with that. But at some point, maybe that'll happen. But I appreciate you saying that. Again, that makes my day. Totally.
Absolutely.
I'll be
You're
sharing that with the
doing a
whole
great
team when we're
job.
done here.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's fantastic. And for our audience, if this is something that you're considering, you're looking at different ways. I've talked to you about funnels in the past and way that you can reach out to your ideal audience as an online business owner. Have you considered podcasting? You don't have to do it in a video form. You could do it in an audio form. It's really quick and easy. You can make an intro, outro. I got mine from Fiverr, and makes me sound like a huge professional. The guy was great. He was from London. I was like, man, he's got a great radio voice. My husband loves playing it for people. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's cool though. And you can just record it right on your phone and pop it right in there. So is this something possibly you could consider doing? I would definitely recommend it. So then with Podmatch, and I know this isn't a commercial, this is just my true, genuine experience with what you have to provide and how it's impacted my business. They remind me, they have to have their podcast about 90 days, I believe, to get on?
Yeah, and a lot of people don't continue their podcast. That's the thing. So we made it so you could register past what's considered the pod fade line. So there's like a huge industry standard of like, this is when someone's going to make it or fail. Kind of like marriages. I think it's like 7 years. If you pass that, you're like good to go or something like that. Like it's similar to that type of thing. So we just made it after that because to really respect the guests that join, because a lot of people, they don't want their own show. They just want to be on other shows, which is fantastic. But I want to make sure that they don't join and then record an interview and then it never goes live because the person decided, I'm not going to do this. I don't want to. It's too much work, right? We want to make sure people have passed that line beforehand. So that's important. But people can register from day one as a guest if they want to jump on and share some expertise. That's something that's there for people.
That's awesome. That is fantastic. Well, I want to be mindful of your time. Is there some key points that you would leave with our audience today that they can apply to their business? Just anything that comes to your heart.
Yeah, I think probably the biggest thing on my mind right now is really to make sure, just because of what we've been talking about, is to make sure that you're really solving people's problems. So a lot of us as entrepreneurs, myself included, we have ideas and there's nothing wrong with that. We want to turn them into profit. But I found the quickest way to do that is actually to find a true problem that somebody that you care about has. And you need to validate it. So it can't be like, your sister has this problem or like your cousins, this, your best friend has that, right?
It's good. Yeah.
Right. You don't necessarily do that. But when you can find an area that you have expertise in. So for me, podcasting, The way I got the idea for Podmatch was asking podcasters what they were struggling with.
Nice.
I just asked them, I said, hey, what is it that you're struggling with most? And repeatedly, I kept on hearing, I'm having trouble finding ideal guests, like not any guests, but ones that are like actually a good match. So I kept on hearing that, and that's where it came from. So for people that are getting into business and maybe even struggling a little bit, make sure that you really hone in on the problem, then validate it. Talk to people about it. Be like, hey, is this a problem that you really need to be solved? Like, what if there was something for it? Here's kind of the idea I've got. And then of course, I always follow up with, hey, would you pay for it? Because it can't just, you have to eat, right? So it has to be a way that you do that. So ask people, would you actually pay for this? And you'll actually find that some problems don't really exist, because as soon as you say, would you pay for it? People are like, well, no. And then that's your validation of, is this actually a real problem or not? And if people say, no, I would never pay for that, but I would love it to be there. Not really something that you can build a business off of. So these are some fundamental questions that you have to ask yourself, like, stop trusting your ideas, start looking for problems you can solve, ask people to validate it, and then ask if they'll pay for it. And when you can actually do these things, you can start building a more sustainable business based off of that.
That's fantastic advice. Thank you. How long did you take that validation process? From the time you started with this idea, once you started asking podcasters, how long did it take to you implemented it?
Yeah, so I'm really big on me being an achiever, Michelle. I think you and I are really similar. I mean, I got straight to it. So from the idea phase of like putting on these whiteboards that are behind me right now, I wrote the whole thing out, called my business partner, was like, hey, I've got something, we got to do this. That was March 10th, 2020. We launched into early beta on June 15th, 2020. And when we did that, so it's just a few months, but when we did that, we already had 100 people that had kind of gone with us on that journey. We asked them questions, we showed them screenshots, and we launched. We had those 100 people join. We told them like, hey, there's no logo, it's all text-based. It is going to be ugly, but you need to tell us if it does what you want it to do. And so we just took about a month after that. So about 30 days of people using it to kind of figure out what they like, what they didn't like. And here we are, we're about a year later, and we're still making some adjustments based off of feedback that we're getting along the way. As it grows, there's more people, and we'll continue doing that. Like in 4 weeks, we have our biggest upgrade coming out. It's going to be revolutionize the whole the whole message side of things and the way that the matches work. It's going to way simplify that process. It's one of those things that we just continuously evaluate that feedback. And I think that we shouldn't stop doing that. I think a lot of people, they kind of get the initial idea, even if they did all these things I'm talking about, and then they're like, cool, I know what to do now. For us, the whole roadmap for this thing is just continuing to build off of what people have told us that they want and what they're looking for. And we continuously ask. So example of that, tomorrow I have 5 calls with people who use Podmatch, and I'm asking them, I have 4 questions I just continuously ask, like, hey, what do you think of it? How'd you hear about it? What could be better? What else are you struggling with?
I'm one of
them.
And I
just ask, oh yeah, okay, cool. So I just ask these questions, and I just want to see what people say. And I take notes, and we build a roadmap based off of that, instead of, again, going back to our ideas. We're looking to solve the problem, not just create something that we think is cool.
That is fantastic. And for our audience, please take notes on this, because truly, you don't want to have just one great idea. You want your business to last the long haul. So doing that and asking and surveying, it makes me think. I have my online course where I had about 25 beta students that went through it and got great feedback through it. But it makes me want to kind of even go back and do a little more of a survey, and take, because their opinions matter, and it's important to continue to grow and improve and keep growing it and adjusting as your business needs it and as your customer needs it, for sure.
Yeah, there's this great book by Tom Eiselman is his name, and he is a Harvard Business School professor, and it's called Why Startups Fail. And he goes into the main reasons that 75% of startups fail. It's more than that if you're not even looking at capital driven. So these are people that are like actually raising money. And one of the main reasons is they don't validate the problem correctly. Like that's actually one of the main reasons. They have a false validation. And usually that happens when you ask people that are fans of you. So example, like if I just went to my top 10 favorite people that are using Podmatch, or that are listening to creating a brand, and was like, hey, what can I do better? They're all gonna be like, nothing, everything you walk on water, everything you do is right. But so many of us, that's who we go to when we want that, because we want the validation. But really, my thing that I've learned is I actually go after people that are complaining about something. Like if I hear someone complaining, I'm like, okay, so why are you complaining? And half the time it's just people being mean. Like I've even asked some people, gotten calls me like, I don't know anything about it. I just was in a bad mood, so I just said something mean. I'm like, okay, that's not helpful. But sometimes they're like, I had a really bad experience. Like, here's what happened to me. And I can learn from that. That person's not a fan of me. They might not even like me. But if I can take that criticism and turn it into something, that's a lot more, that's a lot better for me than finding my number one fan who's just telling me I'm great all the time.
Right, because you can't change or mold and grow. I've told as at the beginning when last year when I was building my course and trying to just help people more and just than a one-on-one type basis. I said, please be honest. You're not going to hurt my feelings. I need to hear what you think. Please. But if you find someone that has complained about it or something like that, then they're going to be honest. They're just going to share it with you. That's awesome. I'm going to definitely check out that book. Thanks for the advice.
Yeah, no problem. No problem at all.
Well, how would you direct our audience if they wanted to find out more about you? Because I know you have your business, I believe it's Creating a Brand.
Correct.
Can you please direct us in that? Because we'd love to be able to, so that if they do want to connect with you and go further with your business.
Yeah, so Creating a Brand is my podcast. It's the parent company of Podmatch and future other businesses. They're going to be released and things like that, but that's all at creatingabrand.com. And if you go to creatingabrand.com/free, you'll be able to check out everything that I'm doing and all in one place to kind of see it there. And then of course, if you're interested in Podmatch, it's just podmatch.com. But I mean, Michelle, what you're doing here is great. You're a fantastic podcast host. I just recommend your audience hang with Michelle because she's crushing it over here.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, I'll make sure too that those are in our show notes as well, so they can easily connect to what you have to offer. I can't thank you enough for your time. I know you're a very busy man. Thank you for taking the time to be on our podcast today. We really appreciate it, Alex.
Yeah, thanks so much, Michelle. This is an honor to be here.
Awesome. You have a great day.
You too.